Have I ever told you the tragedy of the Great Emu War of 1932? World War II wishes it could be as important as the Emu War. This was a war with global stakes which could determine the survival of humanity. So subscribe if you're new because my channel is tiny, and if you don't subscribe, you'll probably never find it again. And sit back and relax as I tell you how Australia lost a war against birds. Before we get into the war itself, I think we should do a little background on Australia as a country and why this war was so necessary, at least in the opinion of the Australians. Australia was first settled between 65 and 70,000 years ago, probably after people migrated from Southeast Asia. Immediately going forward quite a few years, during the 1700s, Dutch explorers sighted the Australian continent. More than half a century later, a man named James Cook fully discovered and mapped Australia, claiming it for his home country of England. It's actually so crazy that it took nearly until 1800 to discover an approximately 3 million square mile landmass by modern Europeans. Anyway, the English created a settlement where modern Sydney is today. As many people know, the majority of people living on Australia were military personnel and prisoners at this time. That's where the conspiracy of Australia not being real stems from. Some people think the English actually dumped all their prisoners into the ocean and then pretended to have found a country to put them on instead of killing them. And yes, trust me, bro. That's correct. Australia is not real. Anyway, over the following decades, the English killed a bunch of Australian natives and then forced them to go further inland because they do that pretty often. In 1851, a significant amount of gold was found near Bathurst in New South Wales, which began a very similar gold rush to the one which had begun in America just 3 years earlier. Similarly to the California gold rush in North America, Australia saw a massive amount of immigrants, increasing the size of its cities and leading to the population being a lot more than just prisoners and stuff. In 1901, the different states of Australia united, creating the Australian Federation, but it was still a part of England, which brings us to the time period of the Emu War. On June 28, 1914, in Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, I don't remember how to say that, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Este was shot by a man named Gavrilo Princip using a 7.65mm Browning FN Model 1910 semi-automatic pistol. Leave a comment if you'd like to see a video on that story because it's pretty goofy. Either way, World War I began promptly afterward, exactly 1 month after Archduke Ferdinand was killed. A few days after the first declaration of war, where Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, England declared war on Germany. This is a video on the Emu War, so I won't really go into the chain of events here, but yeah, we got a lot of countries declaring war on each other. Anyway, Australia got involved with World War I alongside their rulers in England, fighting in important battles like the Battle of the Somme and the Battle of Passchendaele, which I was supposed to watch a movie on the Battle of Passchendaele and write like a 7-page essay, but I forgot to do it until the last day, so I had to read the IMDb summary and then pretend I actually saw the movie. I'm sure that movie is good though. Maybe. All told, Australia lost around 60,000 soldiers during World War I, which is a crazy amount considering people love to yap about America during World War I, and they lost like 110,000. The population difference between the two countries is pretty big. Anyway, it's not much compared to England, who lost nearly 900,000, which is nearly a million. Million spelled with an M and an I and an L and another L. Okay, so World War I ended. Yeah, we're skipping the whole war. I'm trying to get to the emu part, okay? Now all the Australian soldiers are coming back to Australia from Europe, which leads us to the beginning of the Emu War. Percentage-wise, a really large number of Australian men fought in World War I. So when they returned after the war was over, the Australian government gave them all a bunch of land to make farms on. This worked out all right for a few years, but at the end of the 1920s and into the 1930s, the Great Depression began and lowered the price of wheat, putting many farmers in dire straits financially. This got even worse when 20,000 emus migrated into the farmland. The emus found the land cultivated by the farmers to be a great spot to hang out, and they began to destroy fences and crops. As I said earlier, many of these farmers were ex-soldiers of World War I, and they knew that a great way to kill a large number of animals was with machine guns. They met up with the Australian Minister of Defence, Sir George Pearce, and he agreed to help. Only currently serving Australian military personnel were to use machine guns, and the farmers would need to provide food and a place to stay for the soldiers. The war was set to begin in October of 1932, but was pushed back until the 2nd of November due to a rainstorm which had scattered the emus. On the side of the Australians, we had Commander Major Gwynedd Purves Wynne Aubrey. Wait, Meredith. Oh my gosh, this guy's name is so long. Under his command were Sergeant S. McMurray and Gunner J. Halloran, each armed with 30-06 or thereabouts Lewis machine guns and 10,000 bullets between the two of them. They were also to collect 100 emu skins to use their feathers in hats for Australia's light horsemen. On the aforementioned 2nd of November, the soldiers spotted approximately 50 emus in Campion, Australia, and local farmers attempted to herd the emus together so they could be shot. However, the soldiers only ended up killing about a dozen emus. 2 days later, on the 4th of November, the soldiers ambushed a herd of 1,000 emus near a dam. They were about to get a crazy kill streak, maybe an AC-130, but their gun jammed and they once again only killed about a dozen emus. The soldiers then went south to fight a different group of the emus who were supposed to be much more calm, but didn't achieve much more, even remarking that the emus appeared to have leader emus who were, quote, a big black-plumed bird which stands fully 6 feet high and keeps watch while his mates carry out their work of destruction and warns them of our approach. The Australian soldiers even resorted to putting the Lewis gun on a truck, but somehow the truck was slower than the emus, who were able to just run away. Ornithologist Dominic Cervanti at the time even remarked, the Emu Command had evidently ordered guerrilla tactics, and its unwieldy army soon split up into innumerable small units that made use of the military equipment uneconomic. A crestfallen field force therefore withdrew from the combat area after about a month. Indeed, the military force was temporarily pulled out of the combat zone with only a couple hundred emus being killed. However, they were called back in about a week later after more complaints from farmers, leading to a fair amount more success, with the final alleged kill count being 986 emus dead with 9,860 rounds fired. So exactly 10 rounds per kill. I'm just saying, if you got me like a Dragunov or like an M14, I would have dropped like 3,000 kills. Anyway, after a few weeks, the campaign ended, but farmers kept asking for more military support in the years after. But the Australian government decided to go with a bounty system for farmers to kill the birds themselves, which was actually extremely effective and led to nearly 60,000 bounties being collected. This actually led to the English criticizing the Australians for trying to exterminate the emu population, which of course the British would take the side of the birds over their own people. Anyway, if you guys did enjoy, that's the Emu War. Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe if you're new, but I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.